My name is Chloe Bennett. I turned 40 this year, and for a long time I told myself I was fine with the way my family worked, that I understood the rhythm, the hierarchy, the unspoken rules about who mattered most and who filled in the gaps. I thought I'd grown numb to it. Turns out I hadn't. I'm the middle child. My older sister, Danielle, has always been the golden one. Straight A student, former volleyball captain, now a corporate attorney with a polished smile, and a life that looks expensive even when she's complaining about it. My parents talk about her like she's a case study in success. My younger brother, Brian, works in marketing, or at least that's what he tells people. He's constantly between projects, traveling, posting filtered photos with captions about hustle and burnout. Somehow, my parents treat his chaos like creativity. And then there's me. I own a small coffee shop downtown. It's not flashy, but it's mine. I built it from nothing. Saved every dollar. Missed weekends, holidays, sleep. My parents like to say I make lattes, as if that sums up my entire existence. Still, I thought turning 40 might mean something. So I did something I almost never do. I asked. A month ahead of time, I texted the family group chat. I'd really love to have dinner together for my birthday. Nothing big, just us. No guilt, no pressure. To my surprise, everyone agreed. My mom even picked the restaurant, an upscale Italian place she loved, but complained was too pricey. The same one we went to for Danielle's birthday last year. Same private room. Same wine list. I reserved the table for 8 and paid the deposit myself. I picked out a jacket I didn't really like but thought looked responsible, put extra effort into my hair. I wanted to look like I had it together. Like maybe, just maybe, they'd see me differently this time. I arrived 15 minutes early. Candles were already lit, white tablecloths, tall glasses that made you sit straighter. The waiter smiled and said, "Your party should be here shortly." I believed him. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. My messages stayed unread. I told the waiter I'd wait on ordering. He nodded kindly, the way people do when they don't want to embarrass you. By the second hour, I stopped checking the door. I stared at the candle instead, watching the flame flicker like it was trying to tell me something I already knew. At the 3-hour mark, the waiter returned. "Would you like to cancel the rest of the reservation?" I looked at the empty chairs. 8 place settings. Untouched menus. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Let's call it." I paid the full bill anyway, because leaving without paying felt too familiar, like I'd spent my whole life cleaning up messes I didn't make. The drive home was silent. My phone finally buzzed as I pulled into my driveway. A text from my father. "Family brunch Sunday. Can you bring $800 for the venue? They want cash." No apology, no explanation, just an assumption. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. I wasn't angry. I felt hollow, like something had finally been scooped out of me that I didn't have the energy to replace. That night, sitting alone on my bed, I started replaying everything I'd spent years excusing. The birthdays forgotten, the events skipped, the way my accomplishments were always described as cute. It wasn't the dinner that broke me. It was realizing they never meant to come. And now they expected me to show up again. Smile, pay, pretend. That text was the moment something shifted. I didn't know it yet, but it was the beginning of the end. I didn't respond to my dad's text. Not because I was plotting some revenge fantasy, not because I wanted drama. I just couldn't. It felt like if I typed even one word, the dam would crack, and I didn't trust what would come rushing out. Tears, rage, something uglier than both. So I left it there, a glowing demand on my screen. A few hours later, another buzz. A thumbs up emoji from Dad. That was it. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We're sorry." Not even, "Did you get my message?" Just a passive little stamp of expectation, like he'd already decided the outcome. Like I was already on board. Like I'd show up early, hand over the cash, and quietly absorb whatever disrespect came next. I stared at it long enough that my coffee in the mug beside me went cold. 2 days later, my phone rang. Danielle. Her voice came through bright and breezy, like she was calling from inside a commercial. "Chloe, hey, quick question. Do you still have those folding chairs from your shop? The black ones? We need them for Sunday." I blinked because for a second my brain actually couldn't connect the dots. It was like she was speaking a different language, a language where time didn't exist, where actions didn't have consequences. And she continued, "Could you bring a couple of those cute syrup bottles, the glass ones? Mom wants the brunch to look, elevated." I could hear laughter in the background, clinking, music. Someone yelling, "Mimosas!" They were already setting up, already having fun, already moving forward like I hadn't sat alone at a candlelit table for 3 hours while strangers pitied me. I swallowed. Danielle, I said carefully, my voice sounding too calm, like it didn't belong to me. Do you remember you all didn't show up to my birthday dinner? Silence. Not the kind that says, oh my God, you're right. The kind that says, wait, what is she talking about? Your birthday dinner? She repeated slowly, like she was rolling the words around in her mouth, trying to remember if it was a real event or a rumor. My grip tightened on the phone. Lavinia, I said. The restaurant you picked. The one I reserved. The one I paid a deposit for. Another pause. Then her voice shifted into something light and dismissive, like she was stepping around a puddle. Oh my God, right. Yeah, that week was chaotic. Chaotic. Like my 40th birthday had been a scheduling inconvenience. Brian thought it was next week, she went on, and then he got invited to some work mixer. That wasn't work, I said before I could stop myself. Danielle ignored that. And Mom said she thought you rescheduled, she finished, as if that explanation should wrap everything up neatly like a bow. I waited for the part where she apologized. It never came. Instead, she brightened again, like flipping a switch. But Sunday will be so fun. We can totally toast you then, like a belated birthday brunch moment. A belated toast. At a brunch I was being asked to finance. My throat tightened. My eyes burned. But I held my voice steady, because if I sounded emotional, they'd do what they always did. Call me dramatic. Call me sensitive. Call me difficult. Do you think that's okay? I asked. Danielle laughed, short and sharp. Not cruel exactly. Worse. Amused. Chloe, she said, are you really making this a thing? My stomach dropped. A thing? I repeated. It wasn't on purpose, she said, already annoyed now. You know how Mom gets. You know how Brian is. And you're 40, not 14. I felt something hot rise up my chest. Not quite anger, not quite grief. You didn't even text, I said. No one did. Danielle exhaled like I was exhausting her. Oh my God, stop being so sensitive. You always get like this when you don't get your way. That line landed like a slap because it was so familiar. The script, the narrative they'd written about me my whole life. Chloe is the emotional one. Chloe overreacts. Chloe makes everything uncomfortable. I stared at my kitchen wall, at the little framed photo of my coffee shop opening day, me standing alone with a ribbon-cutting scissors I'd bought myself because no one else did. And I realized something sharp and terrifying. They didn't see me. Not really. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I just pressed the red button and ended the call. The silence afterward was so loud it felt physical. I stood there in my kitchen, phone still in my hand, like I was waiting for it to ring again. Like I was waiting for her to call back and say, I'm sorry. I can't believe we did that. It didn't ring. Sunday came. And for the first time in my life, I didn't show up. I didn't bring chairs. I didn't bring syrup bottles. I didn't bring cash. I didn't bring myself. I stayed home. At exactly the time brunch was supposed to start, I made myself coffee and sat by my window with my legs tucked under me like I was trying to make myself smaller. My phone stayed quiet. No one asked where I was. No one checked if I was okay. And that was the part that hurt the most. Later that afternoon, I opened Instagram without thinking. My mom had posted a photo. Everyone around a long table, smiling wide. Gold balloons spelling out family behind them, like a joke someone forgot to explain to me. Dad in his Hawaiian shirt, looking smug. Danielle front and center, holding a mimosa flute like she was hosting a lifestyle segment. Brian leaning in with his arm around whoever he was dating this month. Caption: nothing like family #brunch vibes #Sunday fun day. I stared at that heart emoji like it was mocking me. Then came a knock at the door Monday afternoon. I opened it, and there was Aunt Mel. She stood on my porch, holding a small gift bag, eyes tight like she'd been arguing with herself all the way over. I just wanted to say, she began, voice cracking slightly, I'm sorry. That word alone hit me harder than everything else, because it meant someone had noticed. She stepped inside, and as I poured her a black coffee the way she liked it, she looked around my kitchen like she was seeing the loneliness still hanging in the air. I thought they were going, she said softly. I really did. I asked your mother that morning. She swore everything was on track. I nodded, because if I spoke, I might break. Aunt Mel reached into the bag and pulled out a small photo album. I found this, she said, and I thought, maybe you should have it. I took it with shaky hands. Inside were pictures, old ones. Me and Aunt Mel at the park, me missing teeth and laughing, me at my middle school play, Aunt Mel sitting in the front row while my parents' seats were empty, me at my high school art showcase, Aunt Mel holding flowers like it was the biggest event in the world. I flipped through page after page, and my chest tightened with something I hadn't expected. Proof. Proof that it wasn't just in my head. Aunt Mel touched my hand gently. "They don't deserve you," she said, voice low but firm, "and you don't deserve this treatment." I stared down at the photos, and in the quiet, something clicked into place. This wasn't new. This wasn't just my 40th birthday. This was a pattern, a lifetime of excuses dressed up as misunderstandings. And now that I could finally see it clearly, I didn't know if I could unsee it. The next blow didn't come loudly. It arrived quietly, tucked into my inbox like a routine notification. 2 weeks after the brunch I didn't attend, I opened my email before work, coffee still steaming beside my laptop, and saw a message from my mother. Subject: family. Cabin repairs. Shared expenses. She'd CC'd Danielle and Brian. No greeting, no hope you're well, no acknowledgement of the birthday that had come and gone like it never mattered. Just a paragraph. "Hi kids, the cabin needs a new roof, some plumbing fixes, and general maintenance." Danielle's contractor quoted around $16,000. "Since your dad and I are retired, we thought it made sense to split it evenly 3 ways. That's a little over $5,000 each. Let us know how soon you can send your share so we can book the work." I read it twice, then a third time. It was written like an invoice, like I was a line item on a spreadsheet. No mention of how I'd been treated, no apology, just money. I closed the laptop. I didn't reply. 3 days later, another email. "Chloe, any update? We need to confirm with the roofer by Friday. Danielle and Brian already said yes. Thanks." That thanks sat in my chest like a weight. I still didn't respond. That week at the shop was brutal. One of my baristas had food poisoning, another had a family emergency, and I covered extra shifts myself. I opened early, closed late, lived on espresso and muscle memory. By Friday night, my body felt hollowed out. My phone rang while I was locking up. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. When I got home, I listened to it sitting on the edge of my couch, still wearing my coat. "Chloe," he said, voice clipped, controlled in a way that always meant trouble. "I'm not sure what's gotten into you lately. Your mother is stressed. The cabin is falling apart. We're not asking for much, just for our kids to help out. I hope you're not pulling one of your passive-aggressive stunts again. You're 40 years old. Grow up." I replayed it. Once. Twice. By the third time, I wasn't shocked anymore. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was painfully familiar. They ignored me until they needed me. And if I dared to feel hurt, I was immature, difficult, the problem. I forwarded the email chain to Aunt Mel without adding a word. She called me an hour later. "Do they know," she said, barely containing her anger, "that you've never even used the cabin? That every time you offered to help fix it up, they said no because Danielle wanted creative control?" I closed my eyes. "No," I said, "they don't." "Well, I do," she snapped, "and I'm tired of watching them treat you like the family ATM." That weekend, I drove to the cabin. I still had a key. The door opened easily, like it had been waiting. The place smelled the same. Old wood, dust, a hint of pine. The furniture hadn't changed in years. Same sagging couch, same chipped mugs, same neglected corners. There was a dry erase calendar on the fridge. Danielle's name was written all over it. Brian's too. Summer weekends, long stays, work from nature, friends visiting. My name wasn't there. Not once. I stood in that kitchen staring at those empty squares until something in my chest tightened so hard it almost hurt to breathe. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't part of this. I never had been. I was just expected to pay for it. I drove home with my jaw clenched and a question looping in my head like it wouldn't let go. What would happen if I stopped saying yes? 3 days later, I got my answer. Another email. This one was cheerful. An invitation to Danielle's 42nd birthday bash. Venue, catering, DJ, full production. At the bottom, one line made my stomach turn. Since Chloe has the most flexible schedule, we thought she could coordinate RSVPs and handle vendor payments up front. We'll all settle up afterward. Settle up, like it was a casual coffee run. That was when the idea formed. Not loud, not dramatic, just clear. I wasn't ready to confront them yet, but I was done being useful. I didn't RSVP. I didn't reply. I let the silence stretch. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to fill it. The silence scared me at first. I kept expecting my phone to buzz, an apology, a guilt-laced message, "Are you okay?" Something that would let me believe this was all a misunderstanding. Nothing came. A week passed, then 2, then a month. No one checked in. No one asked why I'd disappeared. It was like I'd finally stepped out of frame, and the scene just kept rolling without me. And that realization hurt more than any argument ever could. On the outside, my life was fine. The coffee shop stayed busy, rent was paid, bills covered, customers smiled and asked about seasonal blends like the world hadn't quietly shifted under my feet. But inside, I felt like I was grieving someone I'd never really been allowed to be. I wasn't just pulling away from my family. I was shedding an identity. The reliable one, the peacemaker, the backup plan, the one who always said yes. That version of me had been built over decades, reinforced every time I smoothed over their discomfort at the expense of my own. Letting her go felt like cutting off a limb I wasn't sure I could survive without. Some nights I'd sit on my couch with the lights off, scrolling through old messages I'd sent over the years. Sorry I missed dinner. Work ran late. Totally my fault. I should have reminded you. No worries. I can cover it. Apologies for things that weren't my responsibility. Silence in return. One night, I asked myself something that felt dangerous. If they weren't my family, would I still let them treat me this way? The answer came too quickly. No. So I started small. I took Aunt Mel out to dinner. Just tacos and cheap margaritas by the lake. She didn't bring up my parents once. Didn't ask questions. Just talked about her neighbor's dog that barked at ghosts and her failed attempt to start a community gardening group. I laughed harder than I had in months. The next day, I tackled the back room of my coffee shop. It had always been a cluttered storage space. Boxes, old furniture, a vague someday project. I cleaned it out, painted the walls a soft gray, bought a secondhand bookshelf, and filled it with everything from business guides to beat-up poetry collections. I added a couch, a lamp, a sign over the doorway that read, "The Quiet Room. No business talk, no guilt trips." Customers loved it. I posted a photo on the shop's Instagram with a simple caption. Sometimes you need a place that asks for nothing but your presence. It got more engagement than anything I'd shared in a year. People started asking if they could use the room for book clubs, journaling sessions, even low-key therapy circles. I said yes. For the first time, I wasn't just running a business. I was building something that felt safe. That's when the letter arrived. A real one. Handwritten. 3 pages. My mother's neat handwriting, folded carefully like that alone, should soften the blow. I hesitated before opening it. "Chloe, I don't know what's going on with you." Of course. No acknowledgement of what led us here, just me as the problem. She wrote about how Danielle missed me, about how Brian felt confused, about how family was everything, especially as we got older. Not once did she ask how I felt. She ended with, "We've always counted on you to be the bridge. Please don't burn it." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away. I didn't respond. Instead, I started something new. I launched a mentorship program through the shop, helping young adults who wanted to start small businesses but didn't have family money or connections. I put up a sign in the window. "Got a dream? I'll help you build the blueprint." The first person to sign up was a 19-year-old named Evan. He wanted to start a food truck and had no idea where to begin. We met every Thursday night in the quiet room. Budgets, permits, grant applications. 3 months later, he got his first license. He cried when he showed it to me. I cried later alone. It felt like light entering a room that had been sealed shut for years. That's when the family group chat exploded. Danielle started it. "So Chloe's just done with us now." "Cool," Brian chimed in. "We're adults. If you have an issue, say it." Mom followed. "This is heartbreaking. We didn't raise you to hold grudges." I stared at the screen, hands steady. Not one of them asked why. Not one of them wondered what they'd done. They just circled the wagons and pointed inward. For the first time, I didn't explain. I turned off notifications. A few days later, a letter from my father arrived. One sentence. "Call me when you're ready to stop acting like a stranger." That one stung, because it confirmed what I'd been avoiding. They didn't miss me. They missed what I provided. That night, I wrote something in my notebook. Maybe I spent too long proving I deserved a seat at a table I should have walked away from. I underlined it twice. And that was the moment I stopped waiting for permission to change my life. The call from Aunt Mel came on a Thursday night, right as I was closing the shop. "You need to sit down for this," she said. That was how I knew it wasn't just gossip. Aunt Mel didn't dramatize. When she told you to sit down, it meant truth was about to land hard. I locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and sank onto one of the stools. "Okay," I said, "what is it?" "I went through your grandfather's old files," she began. "The ones he asked me to keep. The ones your parents never mentioned." My heart started thudding. "You remember the cabin paperwork?" she continued. "The ownership transfer after he passed?" "Vaguely," I said. "Dad said Danielle would handle the details. I signed what they put in front of me." "That's what I thought you'd say," Mel replied, "and that's why I kept digging." She paused, just long enough for the weight of her words to settle. Chloe, you're not just helping with the cabin. You own part of it. I straightened. What? 20%, she said clearly. Same as Danielle, same as Brian. Your parents hold the remaining 40, equal shares. My mouth went dry. No, I said automatically. That can't be right. They would have told me. Mel let out a short, humorless laugh. They didn't, because it didn't benefit them to. She emailed me the documents while we were still on the phone. Deeds, percentages, bylaws, everything spelled out in ink that didn't care about family politics. Any major decisions required a majority vote, meaning my parents couldn't override me, meaning Danielle didn't have more power than I did, meaning I wasn't just the one footing the bill. I was an owner. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every conversation about the cabin. Every time I'd been told it's handled, don't worry about it. Danielle's got a vision. They hadn't excluded me by accident. They'd done it on purpose. That weekend, I drove back to the cabin, alone. This time, I didn't walk through like a guest. I walked through like someone taking inventory. The loose railing on the deck, the warped floorboard by the fireplace. The guest room Danielle had turned into storage without asking anyone. I took photos, notes, measurements. And then I did something that would have terrified the old version of me. I made decisions. I fixed what needed fixing, cleared out what didn't belong. I claimed one of the bedrooms, the smallest one, tucked in the back, and turned it into a space that was mine. A desk, a lamp, a framed photo of my coffee shop opening day. I didn't announce it. I didn't ask permission. I simply occupied the space I legally owned. The confrontation came faster than I expected. Danielle showed up the following Sunday. Her silver SUV pulled into the driveway like it had every right to be there. She stepped out in sunglasses and confidence, scanning the porch like she was trying to figure out what had changed. "What are you doing?" she asked the moment she saw me sanding a chair. I didn't look up. "Fixing something that's been broken for years." She scoffed. "No, I mean this. Moving things. Staying here. You're turning the cabin into some kind of retreat." "It's called maintenance," I said calmly. Danielle crossed her arms. "You don't get to just decide things, Chloe. This is family property." I finally stood. "Yes," I said evenly, "and I'm family, and an owner." Her smile faltered, just for a second. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "Mom and Dad—" "Have 40%, I interrupted. "You and Brian and I each have 20. The color drained from her face. "That's not—" She stopped, swallowed. "You're really going to do this? Pull the legal card?" "I'm pulling the reality card," I replied. "You've treated me like a resource, not a sister." Her jaw tightened. "You're making this uncomfortable." I met her gaze. "Good." She left without another word. A week later, the email arrived. Subject: cabin meeting. Important. They wanted to realign expectations. So I went. But this time I didn't go alone. I arrived at the cabin early. Old habit. For years, being early meant setting up chairs, wiping counters, smoothing things over before anyone else arrived. This time it meant something different. I wasn't there to prepare the space for them. I was there to stand my ground. Aunt Mel pulled in 10 minutes after me, stepped out of her car with a thick folder tucked under her arm, and the calm confidence of someone who had lived long enough to stop caring who approved of her. She gave me a small smile. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded. Danielle arrived next. Brian followed, already annoyed, already scrolling on his phone. My parents came last, moving together like a unit, claiming the head of the dining table without even thinking about it. They expected me to sit. I didn't. I stayed standing near the fireplace, the one I'd just resealed myself, and opened my laptop. "Before we talk about expectations," I said, my voice steady, "I want to go over some numbers." That alone shifted the room. Danielle crossed her arms. Brian sighed dramatically. My mother pinched the bridge of her nose like I was giving her a headache. I projected the spreadsheet onto the TV. "Over the past 3 months," I continued, "I've spent 97 hours and $4,862.71 on cabin maintenance, repairs, and upgrades." Silence. "I have receipts for every dollar," I added, including labor I didn't charge, because apparently I don't get to invoice my own family. Brian scoffed. "This isn't a business, Chloe." I looked directly at him. "Then stop sending me invoices." He shut up. My father cleared his throat. "What's the point of this?" "To make something clear," I said, "I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm a 20% owner, and I'm using that share. If you don't like it, you're welcome to buy me out." That landed hard. Danielle laughed, but it was thin, forced. "You can't be serious." Aunt Mel leaned forward. "I'd advise against dismissing her. Based on current market value, especially after the improvements Chloe's made, buying her out would cost more than you're prepared to spend." No one argued, because they couldn't. That was the moment everything shifted. Not because I raised my voice, not because I threatened, because I didn't flinch. We left shortly after. No resolution, no apologies, just stunned silence. A week later, I signed my first rental agreement. Weekend retreats, monthly bookings, legitimate income. Legally, I didn't need full approval to use my portion of the property. I wasn't altering the structure, I was simply hosting. I emailed the family a professional notice, calendar attached, boundaries clear. Danielle replied within 20 minutes. "You can't do this," I replied just as calmly. "I can, and I am." Mom left a voicemail accusing me of monetizing something sacred. Brian mocked me for becoming a landlord. Dad sent a lowball buyout offer that made me laugh out loud. I declined it in 2 lines. And then something unexpected happened. They stopped ignoring me. Not with warmth, not with understanding, but with caution. Danielle started showing up to the cabin again, only when it wasn't booked. Fixing things quietly, no commentary. Brian watched my social media stories without interacting. My parents stopped demanding and started asking. Not apologizing, but noticing. And for the first time in my life, that wasn't my responsibility to fix. On a quiet morning, standing on the porch with Aunt Mel, coffee warming my hands, she asked, "Ever think about selling your share?" I smiled. "No," I said, "not a chance." Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's reclaiming your space. Sometimes it's documentation, leverage, and silence. Sometimes it's building a life so solid that the people who underestimated you have to watch from the outside. I didn't destroy my family. I simply stopped holding them up. And that was enough.